Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another amazing, thought-provoking, intriguing episode of the Living in Fullness podcast. First things first, a huge thumbs up to everybody who's been supportive of this podcast. It never goes unnoticed. I also want to tell you that if it's your first time here, please join the amazing, lovely family by clicking the subscribe button, support the podcast by liking and sharing, and interact by commenting. I am your host, Naki Hlomai Muteto. So today in studio, guys, I have a director, I have a partner, I have a lady who just does not inspire using her CA profession and accomplishments, but through even her articles that she posts on Instagram, very intriguing, very thought-provoking, articles that challenges your critical thinking. Help me in welcoming the amazing Zimkita Mabindla.
Thank you so much, Naki. Thank you for having me. It is such an honor to be invited, actually.
Oh, thank you for showing up. I'm so excited to have you here. I have so many questions. I had to remember that I only have an hour.
Yes. And I like talking as well. So.
It makes it amazing. But we're going to start. We'll ease off with the icebreakers. Yeah? Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Just 3. I think it's about 3 questions. Yeah. But yeah. So the first one, can you share your top 3 favorite books and how they have impacted your life?
The first one is The 7 Habits by Stephen Covey. And I read this book, I think I was just 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I read this book and it changed my life, literally, because at the chapter on envision your life at the end, and then work backwards to where you are right now. What do you want people to say, right? And for me, that was one of the things that I always wanted people to say. I never questioned her integrity. I never doubted how noble her intentions were and how sincere her effort is. So for me, that really shaped my life. And over the course of from 21, 22, 23 to now, I've been adding to that kind of thought to say, this is what I want people to say about me when I'm no longer here. And then, obviously, I read a lot of other books. I'm going to a book club after this session, actually. Lift as You Rise by Bonang Mohale. And I think he wrote the book in 2018. The reason why I love the book so much is because when I read it, it resonates with the stuff that I do write, actually. He's kind of like a more less direct version of, of the content that I produce. So, for me to see other leaders actually anchoring the very same things that I believe in, that for me is very, very crucial. And the third book is not even, it's not a leadership book.
Okay.
I read the series, Makoti, The Wife. Shlomu, The Wife.
Oh. Okay.
So I read Black women, South African Black women authors. Or actually, I also read the lady from Zim as well, Sunyachi. I read those books. And the reason why is, for me, is actually some of the issues that Black women are dealing with, they come through those books. I actually I have so many books from South African and the broader African continent women authors, because you kind of like see that the things that we experience here are actually happening across the continent.
Yes.
So now you actually can actually say, okay, we're not alone anymore. Whereas when we were growing up, we didn't have Black authors, women authors writing. So we felt so alone in what we were experiencing. Sure. So for me, I read all of those books. It's fiction, obviously, but it's fiction that I love and I learn so much from. And some of my content then that I publish that is quite direct comes from those books as well. Yeah.
By those.
Yes.
Amazing. Let's go to the second one. Who has been your biggest inspiration and why?
My mom. It has to be my mom, and not because my mom, she birthed me. So I actually wrote an article that says, it's titled, "My children will not grow up in this environment."
Oh yes,
yes,
I read it.
And for me, my mom, and so I'm one of 6 kids, and I was not even, I'm a middle child. So like most middle children, you get forgotten. You're the black sheep of the family. I was called all sorts of things. black sheep, because I was quiet and I was always observing the world, and people kind of didn't understand, but when I actually wrote that article, my mom was so shocked that I remember so much about how she actually moved us from Butterworth, which was a township, and to East London, which, for us was a rebirth of, where the family is today. She's got now 9 grandchildren, going to private schools, going to Model C schools. The life that she wanted for her kids, because she never wanted her kids to grow up in the township. So when she took that big step to actually leave my dad, and it was the biggest scandal across Butterworth, right? How can a woman do this?
Back then it was such a taboo.
It was taboo. She was shunned by her own family. She was shunned by people who knew that my dad was not really a good father. I respect and I still love my dad, but he was not a present father. He supported us here and there. I've since then learned that there were fathers that were worse at that point when I was growing up.
Yeah,
I never thought that. But so her doing that and then actually making that decision, for me, shows the power of the decisiveness that women, especially black women, when it comes to their families, they have a vision for their families and they actually become very good leaders. So for me, I'm not looking from a perspective of, it's mother's love. We cannot measure mother's love, right? But we can measure what she's done that turned around the lives of about 15 people. And she single-handedly did this because she said, my children will not grow up in this environment. So my mom informs a lot of things that I do and how I actually behave and how I conduct myself and how I lead as well. So she would be my person that I would choose as the most inspiring leader that I've ever met.
So, you answered my next icebreaker. And I'm looking at you and I'm trying to process what am I going to ask now? Because my next one was, I was asking you that reflecting on the lessons, right, that you've learned in your life.
Yes.
How much did your mom influence those lessons?
Yes.
But I think you've answered it. So now what I want to ask you is, because you've got a daughter.
Yes.
You just say she just turned 18.
Yes.
Yes. So what's one lesson, if she ever forgets anything you've taught her, what's one lesson that you want her to always live by?
First, do no harm. My daughter knows. It's one of... First, do no harm to yourself. Don't do harm to other people. As long as people are not hurting anyone, they're not hurting you, they're not hurting animals or the planet, what they do with their lives has got nothing to do with her. You don't have a right to judge them. You have no right to have an opinion on them. So that's the biggest lesson. I've raised a child who is conscious of her humanity and other people's humanity. And I think for me, that is the greatest gift we can give into the world. Last week when she turned 18, I said, I released to you a leader who is in touch with her own humanity. Lovely. And also in touch with other people's humanity. And that for me is one of the one lesson that she will tell you. My mom told me, first, do no harm.
Sure. I love it. I'm already excited about this episode. So tell me, so we're done with the icebreakers. So for people that don't know Zimkita,
yes.
Who are you?
I'm turning 47 in July.
Gosh, so you're out there looking like you're turning 25. You're making me question my age.
No, we all. This is. I tell people this is how black people age. We're all aging like this now. We're like,
we don't crack.
We don't crack now. So I've over the years, I've been. Obviously changing. I'm not changing the core of or adding layers, but I think right now what I want people to remember me as is a leader who imbues others with a sense of confidence and competence, and a leader who leads with empathy, with compassion, with generosity, and with kindness, right? I just want people to remember me and remember me well. I work in the auditing profession, and I've been in and out of the auditing profession, but my first job is to nurture leaders. So I want those leaders. I say to my daughter, she calls me the Beyonce of the profession.
We see it.
So I'm like, I said, remember, I'm nurturing leaders who are going to be on podcasts in the future, who are going to write books, right? Who are going to do analyst presentations, right? So I want them to remember me and remember me well. And I said, the narcissist in me thinks that I can extend my legacy and my mortality through the stories that they're going to tell about me. And they tell their children, their grandchildren, and of how greatly I nurtured talent, how compassionately I led them. And they will have these beautiful stories and that they will impart and actually tell the next generations to come. You know, because the greatest thing we can live is how we remember. I always say, for me, it is the fundamental of self-love is how you remembered when you are not in the presence of those people. Yes. And then that's my whole entire leadership. I want to be remembered as someone who nurtured people's self-worth. Yeah. And one of my KPIs is exactly that. How many people left my space today with their self-worth intact, enhanced, or restored? Yeah. And that, Nagi, I can tell you, because I measure it, it is 100% and it's been 100% for 15 years.
Incredible. How do you measure it?
I talk to a lot of young people, right? So I go to teams and anyone who's ever worked with me will tell you, right? Zim is the only, it doesn't matter. I mean, my child deals with chronic pain. And I always have to be mindful of the fact that if I didn't sleep the previous night, in my car, I'm chanting, I will not harm young people today. You know, because you can get into a space where we are so self-absorbed. We forget that we actually in the business of nurturing leaders. Signing an audit opinion is secondary to what we do. We nurture leaders. So how many people did I see today? And I know each and every, what conversations did I have with them? Did they leave my space, right, feeling like their self-worth has been restored? Because they will come to me and say, Zim, this is whoever, this person did this, you know, and I make time for those kind of conversations. I make time to go and be on the ground and talk to them. And I attend the planning meetings for the audit planning meetings so that I can talk to them. Yeah. And for me, when I get there, I don't want young people to be scared that Zim is coming. I mean, it's one of
coming, the lioness.
The lioness is coming. I mean, one of the things, I mean, you ask about measurement is like when I was working for Psycha and when I was in commerce, I would travel, right? And anytime I would come back, even if I come back a day earlier, everyone's like, Zim is back. You know what I'm saying? Because they know I'm not the kind of leader who causes drama. I'm a kind of leader who brings solutions, right?
Love it.
If things have gone wrong, we can deal with, let's fix it first, right? So for me, I actually look at the reaction of the people. So if they are sad when I come back, I would be so concerned, you know? Everyone is like texting me, when are you coming back again? You know, because I need to run this idea by you. And that for me is very important, that the people that I work with, they actually literally are happy to see me when I'm their leader. Yeah.
That's incredible. So, you know, I love what you're saying about leaving an impression in people's lives, because sometimes when you speak of legacy, we only think of it from our children's perspective. And we say, okay, I want to leave a legacy for my children. But even in our careers, we leave a legacy, right? Because there are certain things that when I just came into the chartered accountancy profession, there are managers, when I think of the amount of knowledge and what they left in me, it's incredible. And that's what's making the person that I am now. So it's amazing to always remember that it's not just about, you know, you ticking your CV and saying my CV is increasing, I've got all these accomplishments like you have, but it's also about who am I impacting with, how far I've gone, who else have I left the legacy for, you know? And you touched on, I was minding my own business, but you touched on a lot of things right now. You inspire people, you're trying to leave a legacy, and you care about how the impression that people get in your presence. But how do you strike a balance between not trying to please them and still remaining firm as an audit partner and still saying, listen, we still have to do this work, and them respecting you? How do you find that balance?
Honesty. You just tell on people how you feel.
Yeah.
Everyone knows I'm very transparent, right? It's how obviously you're going to deliver the message to them. But if you're not performing, you're not performing.
You're going to say it like that. I'm not surprised because when I look at your articles, I'm like, there's no way you're going to go to the back door.
No, I'm going to call you in and say like, this is not the quality. This is not the quality of work I expect from you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and like I engage with people's stories, right? So for most of the time, for me, I don't know, it comes naturally to me. Somehow people do tell me their stories.
Yeah.
So they will tell me that, my child was sick or, So most of the time, I normally get a lot of context as to why the person is performing like this and this and this. But if it's time for tough conversations, it's time for tough conversations because I'm not doing you a favor. One of the things that in our profession especially, and it will happen a lot to Black kids, is that people will smile to their face and then go to the performance review and say something different.
That's calibration.
It's called calibration and it's called performance review by EY. But the process was the same. You get there and then someone has written a performance review for you. I'm like, Naki, I'm going in. They're like, Sam, sharp.
Thank you.
You know what? Sharp. Do you have any concerns whatsoever? No. Everyone has given me good feedback. I get there. I'm like, here is our lead performer. One person says, in my job, she disappeared. Ow. Now, why didn't
you tell the person?
No, write it down.
As a developmental area.
Because now I'm going to have to go back to you now and say, you actually were downrated when you got there. Yeah. So for me, I mean, that's one of the things that I give people feedback. If they're not happy with the feedback, it is what it is. But it is constructive feedback.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, as I'm saying, I'm here to mold leaders. And leaders should be able to learn, to accept that they haven't done well. It's okay if you tell me why, and then I can help you then. What steps are we going to take going forward? But I'm very honest and firm, but I'm also very fun. My audits are fun.
Yes.
The young people, I mean, it's one of my daughter calls me a funny mommy, but now she knows that, but my daughter can give it back. I mean, she... when we fight, it's World War III. It's like
she's quick with her words.
She will. I mean, one of the times she looked at me and said to me, "Mommy, you are a kind narcissist, but you are a benevolent narcissist." She was right because I was being narcissistic in that moment. Because you have the moments as a parent where you're digging your heels because seriously, I have done so much for you. How dare you complain?
Yeah. True.
I'm
like count your blessings. I'm the blessing.
I'm the blessing. When you're counting your blessings, I don't owe you any of this, an X3. I don't owe you private schools, kind of thing. And she was like, shut it down. Like she and I actually thought of, and then I went and spoke to her, but she's also very good at apologizing, my daughter. She will apologize. And then she said, I'm so sorry I disrespected you, but I'm not sorry about the message.
The message remains.
Yeah, but
I didn't deliver it right.
The delivery was wrong. So she wrote me a long WhatsApp apologizing for how she came across. But that for me, those are the kind of things that are important, that people must be able to speak freely. I don't care how young people express themselves. Can they express themselves? Because if I know how you feel, then I can help you. Yeah, but if you're going to come and say to me, like, I'm being respectful and whatever, and you're lying to me, I can't help you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
No, I agree with you. So I want to speak a little bit about your LinkedIn. So the first time I ever read your post, I was like, she's so direct. And then I went on I totally agree with everything she's saying. Because in my head, I think it's things I can think about, but I cannot be able to put them on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So what inspires how you approach LinkedIn and the articles you write?
For me, it's one of the turning moments was in one of the Women's Day celebrations, and I was still at EY at the time, and I was a last-minute panelist because I was not invited originally, and then a day before, one of the speakers couldn't come through, and then they said, Zim, can you stand in for the speaker? And then I actually got there. And then after that panel discussion, I meet two ladies as we're going down into the elevator. And then they say, thank you so much. We were not going to come here, right? Because we are so tired of people bringing these people who come and tell us things that we don't resonate with. Because now we've gotten into a pattern of bringing in all of these glamour zones of people who telling you, Guti, oh no, Naki, and let's say the person is 25. You can have work-life balance, or work-life balance looks differently to me.
Yeah.
It's not realistic stuff. So when I got there, they said that they actually were tired of attending the functions, and most of them didn't pitch, right, because of the fact that they don't resonate with the conversations anymore. And then that's when I went and I actually changed my. Because what people think is personal stuff, so I talk about my divorce a lot, I talk about the Makoti culture. That Makoti culture almost killed my career, right? So now people don't like it, especially Black people. We don't like that because we hate the truth as Black people.
And
right?
culturally, that's not what we're taught, right?
Yeah, so we hate the truth of what the systems are doing to us. We need to progress. But when I bring that, people are like, oh no, but why would you bring Makoti culture here? But it's because I'm seeing how a lot of Black women, young Black women, they like 26, 27, 28, they get married. You meet them 5 years down the line, they're like a shadow of their former self. They've got kids now. And what I found interesting was like most of them I would have known the boyfriends. The boyfriend is thriving, and there was the most mediocre guy that I actually had ever met. And now the woman is like so far behind, right? And we're not engaging with this culture. And more importantly, when you ask older Black women, they lie. Oh, no, you can. You can't.
You can have both.
You can't have both, unfortunately. I'm calling for a total annihilation of the whole thing. I don't even want to say, oh, please engage with it. No. I'm calling, the whole thing must be shut down. Because one of the things we don't understand, I'll make an example of in December. There are cultures and men who want people to spend time in the villages, because this is what one of them was like, oh, in December, I spend time in a place where there is no network. And I said, I hope you go alone to this place.
Who are you taking with you?
No, they're taking their wives and the kids with. And I said, but do you know what you're doing? Your kids are going to private schools. Your wife is going to go back to work. Can you imagine the adjustment on the 2nd of January? Where now I need you, Nike, to speak about IFRS. You're busy talking about Musho.
You were in the village. You didn't have network.
Sam, you didn't have network.
I couldn't even research.
Steinhoff has gone down by the time you come back. And then people go there doing calibration. She is so unaware of things that are happening. I just asked Naki, and she wasn't aware that this company had gone down and this is an impairment of something. We can't have... Where was
she going to see it?
Where were you going to see it? Because you're busy being measured on whether you can wash dishes, on whether you can cook
KPIs.
And for me, if it's more than wife KPIs, how much wealth are you creating as a wife? Maybe it's primitive stuff like how many potatoes can you peel, right? Now you come back. I want you to analyze the underlying assumptions of an impairment calculation. You're still struggling to
understand what's going
on. To understand what's going on, because some of the stuff that we do as auditors is actually based on what's happening in the world. So you don't know anything that was happening in December because now you were sitting in the villages. And then what do we say when we go and present you there? You are clueless. You don't know how to do basics that a white person who was lounging in Platinum Bay
knows how to do. So don't you think then it's a matter of workplaces accommodating the two cultures? Because, I mean, I'm looking at it like I'm a wife.
Yes.
And I personally haven't seen, if anything, since I got married, I see myself rising.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But I think it also stems from the person I got married to.
Yes.
Because I think from a South African perspective, and not even South Africa, I think Zambia, Zim, talking about the countries I've stayed in, it's very similar. There's a culture says a woman is home taking care of the husband, raising the kids and all that. And your career doesn't come first and stuff like that. And I think I understand it, right? But I don't understand it to the extent it puts my career like down the line.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So now how do you, because when I'm listening to you, I want to ask you a direct question. Are you against marriage?
No, I'm not against marriage.
So you're against how?
I'm against the institution, how the institution has been used to rob a lot of women of their self-actualization, of realization, of everything that, Naki, we're living in 2024. The measure is how do you create wealth? You can choose, right? You can choose to say, I want to be remembered as a mom, that is fine. It's your choice. I'm fighting for the privilege of choice.
Yes.
And that is what people, so that's why a lot of people, especially black men, then hate me so much. Because I'm fighting for the privilege of choice. I've seen so many, I mean, I'm going to do, and it was going to be part of my presentation. I'm a speaker on the 8th of May at KPMG. There's a song by Green Day, The Boulevard of Broken Dreams, right? And in my speech now, like as a draft, I have this, when I was young, and at the beginning of my articles, we used to actually have events where the partners' wives would come. And these were senior partners, and these were women who had gone to St. Stephen's, to also to St. Mary's and whatever. And then at some point, then they would have been CAs themselves, and then they would have chosen to stay at home, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they would get there, and then you're chatting to them, they are Mrs. Whoever, whatever. But then they would say like, oh, I used to be, I was a CA, actually I was more cleverer than my husband or whoever, maybe the CEO right now. Oh, we went to the same school together. And for me, the ones that I would ask, but don't you, I mean, when you're looking at these people now, right, they would be like, oh, no, I'm quite happy. But in the briefest of moments, like you saw, a life of wishing.
I wish I continued with this.
Because you could have been bigger than these people. Because you know that you were more intelligent than them. Right?
Hectic.
You know. You knew that you were more intelligent than... I thought they were better people than me because I can't imagine sitting with someone I knew that was not as smart and whatever. And now they are the CEO of a bank and I am a wife. I wouldn't. But in those briefest moments, I mean, that's why I said it's a boulevard of unrealized talent, a boulevard of forgotten people, of forgotten capabilities and capacities for me. And that's why I fought so hard when my ex-husband tried to pull that trick on me to say, I can never live that life, a life of wondering all the time. Could you have been the CEO? Could you have been? I wouldn't. I mean, my daughter puts it so well. And then on what was meant to be the 18th anniversary of my wedding, and 2 years ago, and then she says, what haunts me the most, Mommy, is how I came so close in never knowing you in this form. Ooh. And that, for me, I mean, it actually speaks to exactly that. I would have been a shadow of for myself. I would have been richer, probably. I don't know. But whatever the dream and the vision they had, it was not the dream and the vision that I had. I didn't want to sit at home. I was being promised that, oh, you're going to get, I can buy you a Range Rover. I want to buy my own Range Rover.
I want to be able to buy my own Range Rover.
Yes.
That's interesting. You know, I think then you've answered my question. So it's the ability to not be able to experience yourself fully. The issue is not marriage. It's marriage limiting you from experiencing yourself.
It's marriage being used. I think for me, that's the word. I mean, that's the thing. Because even now, I'm writing now a post around Black patriarchy. And the fact that for me is just, first of all, it's illogical. I mean, we're all oppressed here. Why are we oppressing each other? It doesn't make sense, right? But for me, one of the things that I actually learned from that process, because what people don't understand, I was very happy in my marriage until I wasn't, which was a period of 6 months, right? Because that kind of those conversations coming through and through and through. But the only thing my husband could not for example, pull wool over my eyes. When he realized how tough it was going to be to raise our daughter, that's when he changed his stance because the system benefited him. So my ex-husband helped me to become a CA. I credit him till this day for the fact that he took me to clients. I didn't have a car. He helped me with my driving lessons. He helped me with my first car. So I was happy until I was not happy. I dated him for 7 years. We lived together for 5 years before we got married. But it was when I'm like, no, that was never my deal, right? Because now he had realized that it was so tough to raise a child and someone had to make sacrifices. And my question was, why me?
Yes, it's, it's a tough question, right?
Yeah. I was told, people were telling me, and I love the fact that my daughter called me the Beyonce of the profession, because in one of the conversations I had with one of the older women who was also a professional, they said, Zimkita, you can't have 2 Beyoncés in a group. I said, but Beyonce auditioned.
Yes.
So there was no audition here. So what makes you think I'm not the Beyonce? What
makes you think I'm not going to drive my career more than you would have?
Yes.
I think that...
No, but we look at the reality now. Yeah. I don't know where my ex-husband is. I'm the only Beyonce who's remaining. Right? I've surprised everyone in the profession. With the visibility, the topics, the thought leadership and everything. So I had it in me to do this all along. But now I was being told that naturally I'm supposed to be the Michelle of the group or something. It was not going to work.
Yes, talk about Michelle. But then you know what? I think what I like that you mentioned is lack of choice, right? Yes. The choice should be there. So if I happen to say, now I've decided to have kids and I'm ready to take a break from work, it's my choice.
Yes.
It shouldn't be because you are the wife. It shouldn't come from my husband to say, oh, babe, you are the wife, so I think you should take a break. I should find it okay to take a break. And not from society pressure, not from cultural pressure, but I should be okay with it, right?
Yes.
And I also just feel with the economy that we're living in, you can't have a one household income, realistically as well.
It doesn't work.
So I think if you really want to strive and do well and live that life, I love a good life. Yeah. So if you really want to have a good life, you cannot just be staying at home. You will still have to bring in something to the table. And that thing it shouldn't just be you as a person physically, but it has to be some money, some wealth, some business.
Something that is tangible and is measurable. I think for me, and let me just go back to what you said now about choices. I've taken 3 career breaks since I got divorced. And I've never, not even for a day, regretted it. And I've lost literally millions of rands because I actually would save and save, and then take a career break. The largest one was 2020, the longest that I took because my child was sick, and I lost. Literally, I disinvested everything to take that 10 months break because I couldn't afford for my child to crash and burn. It was one of those things where people talk about work-life balance. If you're juggling all of these balls, you know that there are ones that will crash and you will not bounce back, right? And I was at that stage with my daughter. Last year when I was, when I was doing the sessels and audit tender rotations, my child was sick, but now she's 17. So I actually continued staying because my first instinct was like, oh, she's having a pain flare. She's having all of these pain flares. Should I exit KPMG? But I didn't because at that point I did trust that I've put enough love and leadership and everything into her, the compassion, the kindness, a setting of boundaries that I knew that she was going to bounce back. But in 2020, I could not have made that kind of assertion with any level of confidence. But it was my choice. I've loved parenting ever since. I could make choices for my daughter that benefit her, and they're not sacrifices at all. In fact, I look at 2020 as the turning point of me being a thought leader and a visible thought leader and one of my successful years. But it was my choice to sit at home. Yeah.
You chose to.
I chose to.
I love it. I feel like we could have this conversation forever. But I want to come back a little bit to your childhood, right? So you spoke about how your mom has inspired the person that you are today. What sort of childhood did you have, and how did you then manage to get to a point of studying to be a chartered accountant and getting to this point?
I grew up in the Transkei, former Transkei. So in South Africa, we had countries within the country because of apartheid. And I grew up in the former Transkei. And I don't know, and I still don't know who taught me how to read, but I know for a fact that at the age of 6, I could read. And I was in the villages and I could read English. I could read a full Danielle Steele. I know this. Sure. So Danielle Steele, Barbara Taylor Bradford, Sidney Sheldon. It was the books that were being circulated around. And they were totally inappropriate, obviously, for a child. But I could read. And I know for a fact that at the age of 8, I could do the poem, the Inch Cape Rock by Robert Southey. And I read it now and I can't even get past the first one, it's a stanza or something. I can't because that English is so complicated. But I actually could do about 5 of those paragraphs, right? And so around us, there was nothing to do. It was exactly what apartheid had wanted. That you grow up, you have nothing to do, you're going to be a laborer, why should we invest in you? But reading those books actually, for me, triggered, another education system because I could contrast what was in these books compared to my lived experiences here. So, for example, I make an example that they would have, in the novels, for example, you have someone now who's already a starlet or a billionaire, but they had this really, really horrid upbringing. And then they keep on going back. Now they're already millionaires now, they're going back to... And they describe this poverty that they say, oh, you're like, what poverty is this? They have a fridge, when they're describing their poverty.
And yours.
And mine.
That you knew. Yeah.
It was like below poverty.
Yeah.
We didn't have the fridge. They have cheese every day. Their mom has got nail polish. The mom can go and do her hair. You're like, what poverty is this?
This looks like the life I want.
It's the life that I want. I want to go.
Yeah.
I want to go to a diner and have that terrible coffee they're talking about, right? And I would contrast that. And one of the things that I actually noticed, because I've always been a very analytical person, so that's the reason why now even when I'm writing, people are like, oh, how are you linking these things to these things to these things? Is that the common denominator between the two worlds was money. Right? So I went to my dad, and I think I was 10 years old. I was 11. And I said, what subjects do I need to do to learn money? So for me, I even tell people, like, when people talk about CA, people think that because I talk about being a CA a lot, being a CA doesn't define me. What defines me is a world of knowledge that the CA provides me. Because for me, my biggest idea was always to find knowledge, new ideas. So when I said what subject, so I got and I learned accounting, and then I would go with my mom to go to the bank, and I don't know, black banks always had queues.
Always,
like a snaking queue. So and then I would try and do the transactions in my head. So if I'm going with my mom to sales house to pay for her account, I'm like, okay, I'm paying now, they're debiting the bank, right? And they're crediting, let's say, sales or whatever. But my mom, what is my mom doing in her books? She's crediting the bank and then she's debiting stock because that's the only thing at that level, that accounting, And then with the banks, I was like, but what are the entries? What are the entries? And then at some point I figured out, but a bank has a bank. So someone must be banking for the bankers. Who is that person who is banking for the bankers? And because it said in my mom's statement, credit. And I'm like, it's credit interest. So my mom has to credit, because remember the bank is saying, I owe you this interest or something like that. So it's a debit. So I owe you this interest or whatever. And I'm like, but let's try and do the entries, right? And I'm like, oh my God, it means that, and I was in Butterworth at the time, and I'm like, so if there are 5 banks in Butterworth, who banks for this banker? So it's a bigger system. Then I went back to my dad to say, what else do I need to do? And then he says, the only thing that I can tell you that there is a career called chartered accountants. And Professor Wiseman Kutlu was the first one. That's the one he mentioned. Professor Wiseman Kutlu is a CA, and maybe you might want to be a chartered accountant. And they're not going to help me. I had to figure out myself how to get myself there. But I think for me, the drive to gain knowledge, to actually get out of Butterworth and see the bigger world is what drove me to be a CA.
Sure. I love it. It's interesting. So do you think if someone wants to study chartered accountancy, do you think you would say you were in it for the money? Do you also have a passion for it? Maybe it's even a wrong question to ask you. You're a whole partner. I can't even ask you if you have a passion, because what if you don't? No, but then do you think you learned to love being a CA on the job, or did you start loving it as you started learning about it?
I started loving it because it gave me access to the information that I needed. So for me, even now, I mean, a lot of young people, when I go to the clients, I can quickly remember what is in IFRS 9. Do you have an obligation to deliver cash? Right? Because if you have an obligation to deliver cash, it's a liability.
Yeah.
They're like, Zim, how do you know this? I'm like, I was taught this. I mean, when IFRS was coming through, it's, you know what I'm saying? So for me, it's the actual knowledge. And I think that where we've gone wrong when it comes to the profession is exactly that. Is we're not telling the people what the profession is about. And I'm very passionate about the profession because for me, we create leaders who are going to run sustainable organizations. Yes. Whether they make money or not, we need to be paid.
Ultimately.
You know what I'm
saying? Yeah.
But if you have the passion of saying the financial statements, the finance functions we run, the businesses are telling us a story. And what is that story? And how do we move forward? How do we move the profession forward, the organizations forward, and all of those things? Then I think people can have more passion because we facilitate lives. I tell people, we facilitate daily lives, and we're not telling the story as a profession. In order for me to actually come in here and to open that gate with a remote, there's a CA somewhere when that is being manufactured.
Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying? In order to go into KPMG and swipe your card, someone is running the finance function. And we pay people, I mean, so I always say to my sister, we pay you monies and we actually make sure that the data are collected. You can be paid so that you can buy data and tweet that the CAs are useless.
True.
Yeah. And we still do our job. You know what I'm saying? Because there is not one business that runs without a CA being there. I mean, the banks run with CAs being there. The fact that your balance is correct in your statement, on your statement, there's a CA somewhere.
I think that's what I love about being a CA. Yeah. Because and I think most people, I always say I'm not really a fan of accounting, yes. But I love the other aspects of being a chartered accountant. So I know IFRS because I love IFRS.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But you're not going to find me doing balance sheets and all that stuff. I did it then in the beginning, now no. Yeah. I love the fact that with being a chartered accountant, you can wake up as anything you want to be.
Yes.
You can work in the industry, you can be an advisor, you can be in strategy consulting, you can be in management consulting, like you can be in tax.
I mean, we have a lot of CEOs who are CAs, right? So, and we don't tell the story. We have a lot of people who've branched out into IT because the CA profession is, we develop and nurture thought leaders. So where we've gone wrong is we actually, I think at some point, went with the money approach to say you're going to make a lot of money and therefore the passion is not there. But if you understand fundamentally what we're giving you, when you leave your training contract, we have given you relationship capital. That is massive relationship capital. We've given you intellectual capital, right? So you can go and be anything that you want. And we're the only profession, actually, that gives people access to a lot. The board, the audit committee members, C-suite, before the age of 30, but we're not telling that story. So people must understand that you can branch into anything so that they don't sit in audit firms and be like, I hate auditing. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Yeah, because now if that's your starting point, oh my goodness, I so hate auditing.
You get people say that a lot. So I think for me, it's what you're saying, right? It's why are you in the profession? Yeah. And there's a lot of things that it brings out of you. Like I love data analytics.
Yes.
It's something I realized as a chartered accountant.
Yes.
That actually I love data. I love automation. And now I'm branching into it.
Yeah.
All I need to do maybe to upskill myself is to get a certification,
Yeah.
one way or the other. But that's one thing about it. So tell me, what have been the highlights of your career?
I think as I've grown older, my career, I tell people, I mean, you meet me here like this, you're going to meet the same person at KPMG. So there was a time when the highlights would have been qualifying as a CA. I mean, that was a long time ago, 15 years ago, which is quite interesting. I actually qualified as a CA a week after having my baby.
Ooh.
And just to show, I mean, how the things that we think are so important sometimes are not. And it was a Friday, and I'm like, why am I getting what? It was 2:06. I'm getting all of these calls and private numbers, these messages. And what has happened all of a sudden? I wasn't working at the time. I just had my baby. And then eventually I'm like, okay, let me pick up what has happened. And then one of my friends says, USA, you've qualified. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm holding my baby, and that's the most precious, moment for me. So I would have defined myself with I qualified, but ever since I'm being a mother, being a mom, for me, both career-wise and in my personal space, that is the most defining moment of my career, being a mother. Because for me, then I went back and I said to myself, what kind of a leader do I want to be to my child? Will I be a good mother? And I realized that I already have that my profession has given me some of the tools, in any case, in nurturing talent, because I've always been fascinated by people's growth and development. I spent a lot of time with my daughter. I mean, people, they used to take their kids to their grandmothers over holidays. I never did that. Because I'm very, I literally will make a choice between going out with a grown-up and sitting with her. Like I'm saying, because I'm very fascinated by people's growth and development. It is what is attracting me to the profession, to the audit profession. It's what's informing my writing as well. Because I want to emancipate people so that they can grow and develop and be bigger. I want to be a person who has the most leaders who achieve more than she had ever thought she was going to achieve herself. True. So for me, that was my defining moment across. So in my bio, I start with first, foremost, and always, I am Ramurada's mommy.
Sure.
Because
I love it. So you're a mother first before anything.
I'm a mother first. And that extends to how I nurture talent in the profession. I'm not different. So when you talk to my daughter and the trainees and the managers, Zimkita is the same. For me, first and foremost, what are your talents, your skills, your capacity, everything? Because we need to make sure that you can be you're gonna be the best version of yourself, right? So for me, I don't have I actually want a big client. Those things are kind of like on the side. And then the second biggest win is my divorce, because I would have perished completely, right? And I even say, so I was talking to somebody, I said, I mean, imagine, you wouldn't have known me. You know what I'm saying?
Well, technically, yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't have known me. And I even said to my ex-husband, why spread all the hurt? I understand that you are competing with me or for whatever reason, that whatever has triggered you. But, I mean, so I would not have existed. I would have been a version of myself with wrinkles. I don't know, but it just was not going to be a good end, for me.
You knew for sure it wasn't going to end well.
It was not going to end well for me, right? But for me, it's those two events are very important, and they inform me. And that's why then people get confused as to what is the story of divorce. My story about the divorce is about ethics. So for me, again, I'm calling out the institution, whether it's a family institution, whether it's a marriage institution, for lack of ethics. Because if in any, you kind of like take away people's freedom of choice, it's unethical. There is no two ways about it. People can hate me. They can write, I will be remembered for this. It's a fact. If you take away people's privilege of choice, it was the same when it was apartheid. It's the same when it's a marriage institution. And we need to call a spade a spade. And therefore, we can fix it. It's an unethical. If you are using marriage as that tool to actually rob women of their agency, their autonomy, their self-realization. It's no different than from any other patriarchal institution. And apartheid was a patriarchal institution. But now Black people don't want to hear that because now we bring in new ones. No, you actually, ethics is ethics. I mean, one of the nice things that happened, my daughter wrote a letter to my family beginning of this year. Yeah. And she was calling them out on their inconsistency in treating her when she was sick. And it makes sense because people don't know how to deal with kids who have chronic pain, because it's not like we're going to come back and be like, oh, no, she's fine now. So they didn't know. So they were not malicious. But in that letter, she says, the one thing that I know about my mom is that she's consistent, right? So I can never understand grown-ups who are not consistent. So if people are offended, and she even said to me, because my mom is consistent, I might disagree with her on some of the things, but I know what she stands for.
Yeah, and what she's not going to fluctuate.
Yeah.
She stands by what
when
she
the nice one, when Unandi Pamakutumane was going on trial, and then she was blowing kisses from the court thing. And then she goes, who is she blowing kisses to? I said, I think from Twitter, it looks like it's the mom. She says, oh, well, that's the reason why she's here, because I know my mom would never pitch.
She'll not pitch up.
She's like, I know my mom would never pitch to the circus. So I would have no one to blow kisses to.
Yeah.
So at least the consistency, let's be consistent. If something is wrong, when people of other races are doing it, it is wrong when Black people are doing it.
Ooh, you're touching on another topic.
Because, so that's why I get hated for, and that's why it doesn't bother me at all, right? Those who resonate with me will. Those who want to be stuck and stagnant, but as long as they're not pulling the CAs into their pit hole. I have no, other people of other professions can say whatever they want. I am taking CAs out of the pit hole because we need to move into another world where we're moving forward as a profession.
No, you're the chairman of all women that are chartered accountants.
I am there to pull my babies out.
Take us out.
I'm taking my children out of here.
So tell me, you've been a CA for 15 years.
No, 20. No. I've been a CA for 15, but I've got over 25 years experience, work experience.
Amazing.
Oh. Yes.
So you've got 25 years of experience. So tell me, how have you seen things evolve? Because you're a woman, Black woman, and you have been in leadership positions for some time as well, right? So as a chartered accountant, how have you seen it evolve, especially with women getting positions, like high positions, in audit firms and even in the industry as well? Has it evolved over time, or do you think it's still the same? Or do you think now women are getting positions as just a strategic moves for a company? What do you think?
I think that corporate has accepted that we exist and we're not going anywhere, right? So we are being given positions. So I think there's been progress made. If you're looking at that, the number of women who are coming into the profession, qualifying as CAs, holding positions. Whether that's sustainable, I don't think I can answer that question, right? Because we have a high attrition of women from the profession and from corporate. Because I'm in audit and we have high attritions there of Black women especially. But I don't see them holding board positions. So I'm like, it's a missing group of people. Where are they, right? And then again, I go back to our culture because I know for a fact I got divorced at 32. Right? A lot of my friends were married at that time as well. And they were like, oh no, we're going to hold on. They're all divorced now at 40 and they're struggling to rebuild their careers. Because for 10 years, they were trying to fight the system, defending this and this and this. So they now like, should I do my MBA now? Or should I do this and this? So there is a big space, like there's a 10-year difference where Black women disappear. And then they resurface in their 40s. And you're like, but where were you? Where were you all along? Because you still, when I see you at 40, you're still not a CFO, right? You were in corporate. What were you doing in corporate, right? So for me, we have the numbers in, we've told corporate that, okay, this is how you're going to sustain the women. So we've diagnosed all of these issues that I'm talking about now. I mean, the issues I talk about now about the Makoti culture and all of those things are issues that I'm raising at partner level to say, if a Black woman gets married, you must have the awareness as well that they might be dealing with trying to figure out, let's say for 2 years, who they are in this institution, right? So that when you give them the feedback, at least you understand their context, right? And the story behind why maybe they might not be performing and all of those things. Then you have them having children is a different thing than a white woman having children, an Indian having children, because those conversations, because you can't just say all women have kids, right? Because we know that that's not true. We know that we still are dealing with the bulk of women taking the bulk of the work in the home and when it comes to nurturing their children. So I think for me, with diagnosing the problems, whether the corporate world is willing to take the prescription and the treatment and the medication.
It's different.
It's different.
Yeah.
And then again, we have to ask, what is it that we need to do to make sure that we actually have the right conversations? So we don't want to get there, because what I get when you get to corporate in these leadership positions, Zimkita goes there and says, hey, this Makoti culture. Naki comes like, I'm not my husband. I'm so lucky because my mother-in-law. And we're like, what are you doing? It's a systemic issue. We need to learn, because what has happened, people are exceptionalizing themselves. They're like, I'm the exception to the rule, right? It's a systemic issue. A lot of other women, so we've got the 10% that survives, but 90% they don't, because it's proven they are not in board positions. They're not holding CFO positions. We don't have Black women partners. So where are they? So the statistics matters more than personal stories, right? And stats is telling us what? Women are disappearing. Where are they? And then they resurface, they're years behind. And therefore they start to catch up to try to be CEOs at 60.
And it's sort of late because the men have gone way ahead. And if they're going to look at the a man who's your age and a woman, right, at the same age, and they're trying to compare the two, they will feel like, you're way behind, so we can't give you this position because how come this man has achieved so much in the same short space of time and you're still behind? And to forget that, especially I think from the Black culture, it's a lot of cultural aspects as well that
it's a lot of culture that don't filter through the conversations in corporate. So now these guys in corporate, they are nurturing CAs according to them. We're losing them. And then they're like, no, they don't care as well, because we've nurtured a lot of CAs and they're gone. But now we're not telling them what the story behind them disappearing, because I've actually had a lot of stories where women, when they have the babies or whatever, they can't cope. I mean, in one of the most interesting stories that I had, the husband applied for her to get out of the auditing profession because it was hindering his business and being able to.
Wow.
You see, and then now that's like, here's your CV has been put through where it's more stable. What are you going to say? You're isolated there, and therefore she had to leave the profession. Did she like where she went? We don't know.
Hectic. We
know that she was passionate about audit.
So what are challenges you have personally faced in the career? Personally, that you feel, but if you're going to pick your top 3 maybe, what would you say are challenges that you face, that you've seen across the board maybe, that you've seen other CAs probably go through, or not even just CAs, even women, in the professional space?
Women in the professional, for me, I talk about patriarchy from a race perspective and a gender perspective. Because for me, I always tell people I don't choose which one. I'm facing both the intersecting identities of oppression, right? One of the things that has happened in corporates is like most women now in board, I'm talking about women who come to me and they are in holding board positions. It's you say something and you're being dismissed. You're being discredited. Your opinions are being devalued, right? And it's not people overtly doing this, right? They're talking over you, they're doing this. So and if now I've had so many what do I say, conflicts, because I'm a person who was born ready for confrontation. So for me, I don't sit and skew in pain. I actually tell people. But it's like you haven't even finished speaking. They're already dismissing you. They're invalidating your points, right? Your lived experiences. They're plagiarizing your ideas, right? Because Black women, for some reason, they're asked to jump through hoops when they come to ideas. So one of the reason why I write and so publicly is because in 2020, I actually had no boss. So when I started writing in 2020, the amount of calls I got, I was still with EY.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And I would say, no, I'm a free agent, actually. And then they didn't have anyone to stop me from writing. Because if I had been working at EY at that time or still connected to them somehow, they would have called maybe someone there to say, what's going on? She's not authorized to speak for the profession. So that year gave me the freedom to write the stuff I wanted to write because I had no boss to be reported to and silenced. But then again, like the very same people, you go to them and then you present an idea, they take it. They make it theirs, they anonymize it, they plagiarize it, right? True. So you're having so many things so you're still dealing with that whole thing that when you go and into these positions of power, even at this level where I am, people look at me and the first thing they want, I think there's a term for it now, negging, Negging. It's called, is when people are either condescending or rude, but they want you to prove yourself.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So they condescend in this. And now you jump through over-functioning. I must prove to people that I'm a technical partner.
Yeah.
Right? I must prove to the client that I know what I'm doing. Yeah. You are in this constant state of proving yourself, protecting yourself, and defending yourself. And you know what happens? You never generate ideas. You never move from that space of being constantly developed.
Because you keep being wavered. You're trying to meet each stakeholder's requirements and their view of you and their idea of who you should be as well.
And the thing is, their idea is implanted in their minds. It doesn't matter what you do. I'm a very confident woman. I'm a very assertive woman. I speak up. I'm articulate because I've worked on myself. I practice speaking. I am a Bantu educated, and Bantu education was not fit for human consumption. I've taken that, I've used it to get to where I am right now. So there's been blood, sweat, and tears, literally, to get me here, right? But people, they still want a domesticated woman, a submissive woman. So now I tell people, I don't get paid by KPMG to be any of these things, a submissive wife or a domestic worker. I don't know what you're looking for, but let's just be clear. No, it would be unethical for me to take a salary of an executive director, because that's what we are. We are directors at KPMG, executive director, and give a service of a submissive wife. It's two different, spaces. And I actually had someone. I was in Kenya. It was an African conference. They was still working for SAICA. So I go on stage and I speak and. Those countries, they were a CEO in charge, or they give themselves all sort of titles there. So I was calling them by their names, because in South Africa we call, if you Nike, we Nike.
Yeah.
And then I'm having lunch, and then this guy comes, and this guy randomly sits next to me, and then says, "Oh no, you actually did so well. But for me, if I had met you, I would not, I wouldn't like you, because I was socialized that women must be submissive and." So I'm like, I was also socialized that men must provide. So would it not be weird if I'm walking around asking each and every man that I'm saying, please provide for me, because now I was socialized. You didn't look like a provider on stage.
And also that's for your wife. When we're at work, we're at work.
But that's where people blur the lines.
Yeah.
There is a Zimkita. If I want to submit, I marry somebody.
Yes.
And I don't go to a job
to
look for husbands, right? And boyfriends and people who I must jump through hoops and gymnastics to show my submission levels and audition to be their wives. We go to work.
Exactly.
Not to audition to be people's loved ones there. But now I say this, you're arrogant. So it never ends. And for me, the advice that I give women on this is, pick a legacy you want to leave behind and stick to it. Pick a career. and choose. Because if you want to be a partner, then KPIs of cooking the best food. If you're not going to be a chef, right?
They're at home.
If you're going to cook for 5 people and you want to be remembered for that, it's okay.
Yes.
What we're not going to do is to take people who have chosen that their career lies somewhere else and turn them into chefs and give them KPIs that you cook food, or is your husband too thin? You know what? That is not your KPI. And I'm teaching young women to say, I have done an audit of my life, and this is not the legacy I want to leave. I'm going to have to fail you. Unfortunately, if you don't like my carrots, well, it's the only food I can provide, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just going to have to fail spectacularly on this one, right? You will eat the potatoes that I'm cooking right now. Because now women, especially Black women, they're running all around like with all of these KPIs that are not measurable. Are you submissive enough? Are you? And is everyone expecting this submission, this humility? You're like, and it changes all the time. Because then when you do that, you're going to continue proving yourself, protecting
All
yourself,
the time.
defending yourself. And you never say, am I making money out of this whole thing, right? What ideas to generate wealth, right? Am I going to the right networking events, right? You can't be wanting to go, my KPI for this year is networking and then peeling potatoes. Pick a struggle. And then tell people that this will have to fail because I'm focusing on this. It is a hard thing to do.
It's hard.
It is hard to tell people. That's why I'm saying to people, you must have the words to say, unfortunately, this is not what I want to be remembered for.
That's true. And I think everything has seasons, right? Everything has seasons. So I think if like you were saying, you cannot be 25 and expect to have a good work-life balance, right? So there are times where you're still trying to grow your CV. You're still trying to find yourself in the marketplace and to have people know you and get to actually appreciate who you are outside what you want to achieve in your head. So I think it's seasonal as well. If you're saying I'm in a season of growing my career, then even if you're with a partner, you have to also be sure that you're marrying a partner who is supportive of your career journey, your goals and your objectives, right? So it shouldn't just be a matter of saying, oh, I want to get married. Society says get married by 25. Society is not going to be with you in your marriage, in your career. You know, the same people will start asking you, why have you not done this? They forget that they pressured you to get married. You know what I'm saying?
And more importantly, you can choose to get married actually and just choose not to participate in this foolery.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have to be bold that this is just going to have to crash and burn, right? But choosing to marry, if that's the right time for you to get married, but don't go there and then have 25 KPIs that you don't understand, right?
Yeah.
Can you peel a bag of potatoes? It's not going to help you if you want to be on this podcast. You have to have your nails done. So if now you're going to have to rush and peel potatoes instead of having your nails done so that you can look good for your podcast, we're confusing ourselves.
True.
So you just have to refuse.
I agree. You have to learn to say, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to fail you.
Yes. On that note, we have come to the end of our episode. It's been such a great time with you. I feel like we're going to have to continue offline. But thank you so much, Zimkita. It's been great having you. You are a bundle of joy, wisdom, and you are definitely everything I see on LinkedIn. So I'm excited to have you. And to our people, thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. And of course, before we let you go, please tell us, what does living in fullness mean to you?
In fullness, it means engaging with your own humanity first and foremost. It means being very ethical towards you. And making sure that, because I mean, there is a saying, you can't give what you yourself lack. So if we don't treat ourselves with compassion, kindness, empathy, and generosity, we can't give those things. So for me, that is, first of all, do no harm to yourself before you don't do harm to others.
Love it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Until next time.